Welcome to the Craft in Character podcast. Steve Carter here, and in association with my good friends at Preaching Today and Food for the Hungry, I bring you a podcast that hopefully helps you get better at the craft of teaching and preaching God's word while always hoping and ensuring our character leads the way. Well, today is a special day. I am excited to tell you that Grieve, Breathe, Receive, Finding a Faith Strong Enough to Hold Us releases today. It is my latest book, and I know this podcast usually drops on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, but I'm so grateful to the team at Preaching Today because they were like, hey, let's do a special podcast just based around the heartbeat of the book. And I'm not interviewing anyone. I'm not being interviewed. I just get to spend a few moments and talk about this book. And I don't know if I've ever really shared some of the experiences that really led to this book coming into the world. But many of you know that in 2017, my dream job got announced. I stepped in to become the lead teaching pastor at Willow Creek Community Church. And myself and another person were going to be leading out an incredible exec team and staff, and just beyond thrilled. And then in 2018, stories started to drop about my mentor. And it actually took all of us by surprise. A couple people knew, some elders, a staff person, but really deep down, we did not see this coming. And so it just kind of threw so many of us in a internal and external just tailspin, just trying to figure out what is going on. And on August 5th, 2018, I ended up stepping down and resigning. And to this day, I still think I'm going to wake up from a bad dream. It wrecked so much of what I thought the rest of my life was going to be like. I was 38 at the time, and I saw the next, 25, 30 years of my life, serving in this church, pastoring people, and setting up for the next season of ministry, but also dreaming about someday raising somebody else up and handing it off. And so it was like I saw that life, and then it all shattered. And it seemed like it all shattered in a really, really quick amount of time. And something that felt so stable, something that felt so solid, something that felt so clear, just was gone. It's like Ecclesiastes. It's just what had so much meaning just became meaningless. It just overnight. And so I found myself and my family, we ended up moving to the desert. And there were two primary questions that I just could not stop thinking about. And those two questions were, why do people do what they do? And in many ways, I was asking it about a handful of people, but deep down, I was even asking about myself. Why do I do what I do? Why do people do what they do? And that really led me to Romans 7:15 and Paul's words, I do not understand what I do, but the good I want to do, I just don't do. And the thing I hate, I do. And that led to the book, The Thing Beneath the Thing, because I needed to understand why people do what they do, why leaders do what they do, why people hide, why people tell secrets, why people self-sabotage, why people who have so much good in front of them, why why do they do what they do? And honestly, why do I do what I do? Because there's good I want to do that I just don't do. And so that led to the thing beneath the thing. But the second question was like more piercing in so many ways, more difficult for me to wrestle down to the ground, which was, what do you do when life does what it does? Like, what do you do when life punches you in the gut? What do you do when life shocks you? When life just uppercuts you? What do you do when you didn't see it coming and it's like the whole thing comes crumbling down? What then? And for many of you, you know what this is like. It's when the elder board just comes in and says they're going in a different direction, or when the family that was with you in planting the church just decides without even really telling you that they're leaving the church. Or maybe it's like when a key staff person that just has been in it with you for so many years, out of the blue decides to take another job. Or maybe it's even more difficult when you find out about a secret pattern of sin and destruction with one of your staff members or elders, or maybe you have had a moment where there's been just a disease that's just ravished a family member or someone that's very near and dear to you, or a staff person, and it just came out of nowhere. Or an affair happens on staff, or it's just all of these moments where, you know, we're trying to pastor and we're trying to shepherd and we're trying to lead people, and yet it's like, sometimes there are these forces that are just at work that just seemingly shock us. And in some ways, I don't know if we should be so shocked, but in many ways, I find it's in these moments that can really derail and disintegrate my heart and my mind and my body and my soul, because I just didn't see it coming. And I didn't see what was transpiring behind the scenes for many years at Willow. I didn't see or know of these stories. And then once we started to find out about the Chicago Tribune article that was coming, it was like every day I was learning something new. And that's discombobulating in itself, because you're like, what? And what? And what? And it's just so tricky, because at the same time, you still have a staff, and you still have Sundays coming and Wednesday nights coming, and trying to make the space to process and discern and figure out how to do what's right, but also how to pastor and have the information. And as I, months later found myself in the desert, you almost just find yourself like replaying everything. And I've talked to many people who were serving in the church, and then all of a sudden it's like they're out and they just start replaying that conversation with that staff person, or that conversation with that elder, or that conversation. It's like trying to pinpoint, where did it get off track? And the words grieve, breathe, receive came to me the morning after I resigned. So it's like 5:30 a.m. on August 6, 2018. And I'd woken up in Madison, Wisconsin, because we knew that when we resigned, we had already had media at our house the weeks and months prior. And I knew that once the resignation became public, there would probably be knocks on our doors. And I just knew we needed to be away. And so I took the family, and they're still sleeping in the hotel. And I just get up and walk. And I think we've all probably had moments, in sheer desperation. Maybe it's the night before you have to give a eulogy, or night before a big meeting, or a night before difficult conversation, or a night before kind of a holiday weekend preach. And you have this like longing to hear from God. You're like, please give me a word. That's exactly how I felt. Just please, God, I need to hear from you. And there's been moments over my life where I have felt this like deep impression on my heart that just I knew it wasn't for me. And there's been moments where I've just really sensed profoundly the nearness of the Lord, and I was asking for that, and I didn't hear a thing. And so I remember sitting in this bench in downtown Madison, and I'm asking God and pleading and begging and earnestly, like just needing a word. And that's, I don't know, where Grieve, Breathe, Receive came. And I remember just writing it down in my journal. And I went to a coffee shop, and I just took those 3 words, and I just started to reflect on them. And I have to grieve what is. And I have to grieve what I thought it was going to be. And I have to grieve how key people let me down. And I have to breathe in the new mercies, Lamentations 3. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new each morning. Great is your faithfulness. Like, I needed to inhale those new mercies, and I needed to exhale all of the bitterness and unforgiveness and resentment and anger and fear and scarcity that was just living within my body. And I had to receive what I needed to learn, receive, if anything, that I had to own, and receive who Christ wanted me to become because of all of this. And I was really, really fortunate, because that became kind of a mantra for me personally. As we moved to the desert, I knew, number one, I wanted to see myself and my family heal. 2, grieve, breathe, receive. And number 3, I still wanted to make beautiful things through teaching and writing and this podcast and coaching communicators. And so that kind of became the marching orders in the desert. But the truth is, I didn't know how to grieve. And the more that I talk with a lot of senior leaders and pastors, many of them, just like me, know how to achieve, but struggle to actually slow it down to actually feel and grieve. And so I had a lot of learning to do. And I'm grateful, because the desert was really a holy space. Eugene Peterson talks about how all theology is rooted in geography. So like wherever you are, if you're in the city, it's like a medium to understand theology. And if you're in the desert, that's an incredible topography to teach you and shape you in your theology. And the desert gets its name from the deserted place. In Hebrew, actually, the book of Numbers is named in the desert. And it's amazing, is like my wife is from Arizona, but I didn't do any hiking. And yet when I moved to Arizona, I drove a U-Haul with my dog, Mr. Biscuits, great name. R.I.P. Mr. Biscuits. He passed in the desert, but Biscuits and I, we drove through a snowstorm from Amarillo to Albuquerque that was just crazy. I could even just feel myself just on the road, just thinking I could just get through my grief. I just like, once I get to the desert, just, oh man. And I had pre-ordered all of these books from the ancient desert mothers and desert fathers. And so they were like in a box in the back of the U-Haul. And And I just knew once I got to the desert, man, this is going to be it. And this is going to be the topography that's going to shape a new kind of theology for me that really is rooted in the deserted space. And years before that, I had actually been in Israel, and I had seen a rabbi, and I walked up to the rabbi and I said, "Hey, Rabbi, can I ask you a question?" And he was gracious enough and held some space for me. And I said, "Hey, Egypt, the desert, and the promised land, three central metaphors in the Hebrew scriptures, what we know as the Old Testament. How much time do you think one spends in Egypt, and one spends in the desert, and one spends in the promised land in the average life?" And the rabbi just looked at me and said, "You Americans are so funny. You think everything is up and to the right, that everything is the promised land, but not us. We believe that 10 to 15% of our life is in Egypt, and 10 to 15% of our life is in the promised land. And the remaining 70 to 80% is in the desert." And I remember when he said that, I had no idea really what he was talking about. But as I drove that U-Haul with Mr. Biscuits, I just said, all right, I have spent the majority of my life bypassing, working actively to bypass the desert. And now I'm being invited to see what the desert has to teach me, to do within me. And what I came to find just in the sense of the trails, these little daily pilgrimages up and down, just the movement, the walking, the meeting with spiritual directors and mentors and therapists, doing some real intensives, just in the sadness of it all and the betrayal of it all, and the loss of relationships and the loss of a dream job and the loss of a congregation and all of that. I had to learn to sit with the sadness. I had to learn to sit with the grief. And I'll never forget, one day I was walking, and I started carrying around this small brown wooden cross. I just kept it in my pocket, and I just would find myself just getting almost triggered. And in those moments of feeling triggered, whether just opening up Twitter or seeing some post or having some flashback or being just reminded of the betrayal, and all of a sudden just this like angst came over me, this frustration, this bitterness, this sadness. And so I just started to like grab hold of this little brown cross and just clench it and hold on to it. And one day at the top of Camelback Mountain, which is just this epic hike. If you're ever in Arizona, you have to do it. Get up early. It's really great because it kind of has all of the uniqueness of a good hike. I mean, there's good trails, there's good views, there's a little bit of bouldering you have to do. It's narrow, it's steep. It's just has it all. And it's one of my favorite hikes. It has it all. And I got to the top, and I have this 360 view of the valley. I'm just looking at it all. And I just became overwhelmed. And so I just grabbed that little brown cross. And all of a sudden I started to think about Friday and Saturday and Sunday of Holy Weekend. And it was like Good Friday. Like Jesus didn't deserve that. Like Good Friday, like so unfair. Good Friday, like it was a it was a day that it was just a dark day. It just was a dark, difficult, unjust not right, not okay, didn't deserve it, completely unfair day. And I think as I was sitting on it, I was like, oh my goodness, like for what the women experienced, um, who had courageously brought the stories to the elders, and just in so many ways weren't seen and believed. And it's just gut wrenching. It's like so unfair, so unjust. And as I was sitting with that, it's then you get to Silent Saturday and Holy Weekend, or also known as Holy Saturday, and you put yourself in the disciples, and their rabbi has died, and who gets back up from the dead? It's like, now what? Like, where do we go from here? They're hiding out. They're in fear. They're just so afraid. What's going to happen now? Are we getting arrested? Are we going to get imprisoned? Are we going to get beaten? Are we getting the cross too? Like, what? You can just imagine all of the thoughts that are happening as they're in this liminal space between what they've seen and yet what they have no idea that is about to come. And then Sunday is just the most epic surprise of all time. It's on the one side of Friday, I did not see that coming, but on the Sunday, no way did I see that coming. Resurrection, like the tomb is empty, like he's actually alive. He defeated death. Like, what the what? There's what? And I think about this. I think about Holy Weekend because I think this is the picture of the grief journey, because in Friday, we are in grief. It happened. Didn't see it coming. Unfair, not right, not okay. And our whole world has just been turned upside down, and we're left holding the bag, whether it's the disease, the affair, the decision that somebody else made, the loss of a job, the loss of an income, like any of it that causes us a moment of grief. The grief journey is always going to starts with being in grief. And that's Friday. And then on Saturday, you almost wonder, how do I get through this as quick as possible? Like, what are we gonna do next? Like, what happens now? Like in the liminality, in like the desert, in the uncertain, unknown. Like, what are we going to do now? There's like this survival energy that takes over. Like, what? And this is where you move from in grief to thinking I can get through my grief. And you just start kind of trying to manifest and plot some sense of plan to get you through. And then you realize you can't really get through it. And that's not actually the goal. That's not really the goal. You know, when you think to Sunday and the tomb being empty, and in John chapter 20, Jesus just showing up to the disciples. And he shows up to the disciples, and it's like he walks through a door that's locked, and they're all just hiding out. And he just says, "Peace be with you. Shalom, shalom, shalom." He breathes on them like resurrection breath and says, "Receive the Holy Spirit." And he's like literally saying, almost taking you back to Genesis, because, you know, God shapes and forms and breathes life. And these first creations become this human being. And as Jesus is like breathing, receiving the Holy Spirit, he says, it's like, you, my friends, are spiritual beings. You are spiritual temples. And then, you know, he reminds them of the mission. And then he says the most common sense line. He says, if you forgive someone, they're forgiven. And if you don't, they're not. And he shows them his hands, and he still has the holes in his hands. Which isn't that fascinating? Post-resurrection, Jesus still has the marks of the pain and the cross that he went through, which made me realize that the grief journey really moves us from being in grief on Friday to through grief on Saturday to actually walking with grief on Sunday. You never just get past it. You never just get past the fact that your spouse passed. You never get past the loss of a child. You never get past the loss of a community. You never get past that. You will always have it be a part. It's like it'll be with you. It won't hold the same weight as it did on Friday and Saturday, but it's still going to be a part of you. And Willow and Bill and staff and the congregation, it will always be part of me, for better and for worse. Like it will. And I'm not here to like throw shade. I'm not. I promise you, I'm not. I just realized I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know how to go on this grief journey. And Holy Weekend really just kind of showed me this. I was also reminded, there's this band called Brand New, and they wrote this song way back in the day. It's actually titled Jesus Christ. It's a great song. Band's really wrestling and writing like about matters of faith, and should they be a part of this? Should they not? Like they're just writing about good and evil. And in the song Jesus Christ, the line that the writer sings is just so beautifully. He just says, Jesus Christ, what did you do those 3 days that you were dead? Because this problem's going to last more than the weekend. And that's real, isn't it? Like I know it was 3 days for you, Jesus, but the death, the burial, resurrection, the pain and shock and silence to the surprise of Sunday, like it's often going to take wildly longer than 3 days. And I say that because the grief journey is not necessarily linear. The grief journey really is about your relationship to change. And my definition for grief in the book, I write, honoring what comes up when change shows up, honoring the sadness, honoring the memories of, oh, that was a good time, that was a good season, honoring the moments of connection, honoring the moments of growth, honoring this sadness and anger, honoring it all. And, for many of us, we're really good at maybe sitting in like one side of the spectrum, the anger and the sadness, but not actually being able to hold the other side. And for some of us, we're really, really good at minimizing the sadness and just bright siding, just like it was all good. It was all good. And I realized when it came to the grief journey for my relationship with Willow, I remember just writing one morning about how Willow was my alma mater. I love where I went to college. I met some of my closest friends, some incredible professors at Hope International University. It's a great, small, little, intentional Christian college in Orange County. And I really, really enjoyed my time there. It wasn't perfect. I went through a heartbreak there. I experienced some amazing times. I experienced invitations to grow, and I learned so much about myself. And I was broke, ate top ramen most nights. I worked multiple jobs, did multiple internships. I look at that season, and it wasn't perfect. But I look back at it with the full spectrum of, in Charles Dickens' language, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. It was really, really moving, and it was at moments really, really difficult. And that was also like my time at Willow. It was unbelievable. I learned so much, and it was really, really difficult. And I wouldn't wish some of my experiences on my worst enemy. And so it's all true. And my job as a spiritual being is to be able to honor all of it. So everything that comes up when I have to sit with the reality that change showed up, but I didn't want it, but I didn't ask for it, but I didn't see it coming. And so many, whether it was the staff or the congregation, the people who had been influenced by that church, they all had to be entered into a grief journey. And that's really, really tricky. And it's also really, really difficult when something happens and the person at the top doesn't actually own what happened. And so then it just falls to the next set of people. And that's also what's tragic, because I think people can handle when someone admits that they were wrong, admits the sin, admits, here's what I did. Here's what I did. But when that doesn't happen, it's almost as if there is no closure. It's almost as if there is a death by suicide. And it's like what always was just like that no longer exists. And I'll never forget that morning when I found out that Bill was going to resign or retire early, or whatever it was, whatever you want to call it. And I remember showing up that night, and the lead elder at the time said some words. The lead executive pastor at the time said some words. Bill said some words. There's about 3,000 plus people in the main auditorium. And I just got up to close in prayer. And I prayed over the family and prayed over the church. And then Bill and the family walked off stage. And I literally thought they were just walking to what we would refer to as the bullpen. And they just kept walking. And then they walked up some stairs, and they took a left, and they walked behind the stage. And everyone was just watching this. And I was just watching it. And two things happened in that moment. First one was this: the mantle was like over me, meaning like, oh, he's gone. Oh, he's gone. And he's not coming back. And now you have to lead these people. Like you have to lead these people. And it was, someone tweeted out that night, Carter looked like a deer in the headlights, because that thought just hit me, number one. But number two, what also hit me was 43 years of building something was gone just like that. Gone just like that. Like, you look at that auditorium, 7,200, 7,800, depending on how many seats are in there. Auditorium, I mean, that campus, 890,000 square feet, just in South Barrington. All of the campuses that were in building plans. I mean, it's got to be somewhere between $1.3 and $500 million in assets easily. Just like, it just had been willed to happen. I mean, you can say whatever you want to say about my alma mater, but like, honestly, that campus that they were at in South Barrington, it happened because of vision and 200 plus people showing up to a local bank to take out personal loans and then gave that money to that church to purchase the land and to build the first auditorium, the Lakeside Auditorium. Like that just does not happen these days. And most of them were in their 20s, like out of high school, out of college. And they believed in the mission and the vision of that church. And then to see it just take on such prominence, the Global Leadership Summit, the churches that were started, the people, the pastors that were influenced, the cares, and the mission, all of it. And the person who had led that and championed it for 43 years walked off stage to never to return again. And that just reminded me of what my youth pastor Hal used to tell me all the time. I don't care how many points you score, Carter. I don't care what people think about you. All I care about is your integrity. And integrity takes seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, seasons, years, decades to achieve and seconds to lose. And I just felt that. I felt it. And so there were all these moments just in the desert that had me just having to honor. Oh man, where am I at? I feel like I'm in Friday, just back in the grief. And then moments like, oh man, where am I right now? Man, I just feel like I'm in Saturday. I just don't want to wait anymore. Get me to the next thing. Like, please get me to whatever Sunday's going to look like. And then Sundays, a moment of just surprise. And sometimes the surprise came with an opportunity. Sometimes the surprise came with a conversation. But what I realized is that grief is not linear. It is this constant moving conversation between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. From being in grief to walking through grief to then walking with it, And it's tricky as pastors because, not to mix metaphors, but the weekend is always coming for us to have to preach. And I was talking with my wife and I said, isn't it interesting that every Monday for almost 20 plus years, I have done counseling? And she's like, what? Yeah, why Mondays? And I realized why Mondays was because it gave me the most amount of time after the therapy counseling session to put all of that sadness or the feelings back in the box so I could get up in front of people and teach. Like I had in my subconscious thoughts, let's not get too out of control because then you have to be in front of people. And I think that it's why many of us struggle with grief because we're afraid to slow down because we're just constantly just charging. Most of us pastors, we're like constantly, we're working, keep this family in the church. We're working to reach this new kind of area or neighborhood or zip code. We're trying to like start a new camp. We're just trying to work on our message or work on this new kind of sermon series or work on this and this vision, like we're just going all in the name of good news. And yet there's so many of us that are just stacking grief upon grief upon grief upon grief. And it's like grievance upon grievance upon grievance. And we're just like carrying these and just going and just charging. And I think in one sense, we feel like if we slow down and have to feel it, I think for many of us, we're afraid to be out of control. What will it do? And oh my goodness, I don't want to be out of control. I don't want to be out of control when I'm in front of my staff. I don't want to be out of control when I'm teaching. I don't want to be out of control. And so I'm going to minimize and manage the sadness. And I understand that. I get that. I just, as one of my mentors just said, you're gonna have to pay rent on that grief. You're gonna have to pay rent. You're gonna have to do the work. You're gonna have to. It just depends on will you. And when you think about the 70 to 80% of our life in the desert, I started to wonder, why did it take so long? Why did it take so long for the Hebrew nation? I mean, they weren't that far from Egypt to the promised land. It's not that far. And yet it took them 40 years. I heard one scholar say it was less than 30 days journey, 30 days pilgrimage to the promised land. And instead of it being 1 month or even 12 months, it was almost 500 months. And in one sense, as one scholar says, it's one thing to leave Egypt. It's another thing to have Egypt leave you. And it was one thing to leave that position or to leave that kind of relationship or congregation. It's one thing to have that person leave you, but it's another thing to have it actually like get out of your system. Because some of us, we carry those grievances. We carry those memories. Our body keeps score. As that great book is entitled, like we hold it. We hold it. And until we can honor its truth, it's going to hold our life in check, as the great Parker Palmer says. And so 40 years of just wandering, which makes me realize we all have a choice with our grief. And it is a relationship with change, but as I write, it's also a relationship on those Saturdays, those silent Saturdays. What's our relationship with waiting? Are we gonna hate the wait? And that's what most of us end up really doing. We just hate the wait. We just start choosing unhealthy escapes. I don't want to actually honor it. And so I'm gonna take it in another direction. And Kendrick Lamar, I grieve different. I think we all grieve. We all have to find permission to grieve, but how do you not actually slow the process of healing and wholeness down by choosing unhealthy escapes? And that's what we do when we hate the wait, or second, when we just waste the wait. We don't see it as a chance to learn. We don't see it as an invitation to become. We don't see it. We just let ourselves get angry and bitter and we just work and we just escape and we just transfer that pain and we don't do the work. So you can either hate the wait, you can waste the wait, but you also can win the wait. And you can open yourself up to kind of really take in the data of the pain, to really kind of almost hold each person or each moment before the Lord and before the light, and just say, like, what really was that? Because part of the grief is you're having to grieve what you thought it was going to be. Nobody taught me that. That's like the hardest of the hard, because for many of us, we saw the future. We saw what it was going to be. And then just like poof, it's like the detox of all detoxes, where you're like, it's just over. It's gone. Now what? And I liked what my life was going to be. And now I gotta deal with that. And your identity's wrapped into that. The belonging's wrapped into that. Your purpose is wrapped into that. It's all just needs to be untangled. And that requires you going slow. And here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you for any of you pastors who are just grieving. And we all are. I mean, there's books of the Bible, Lamentations, there's Psalms that are just invitations to just feel it. But I also realize that, if we only talk about race and racial issues and tensions on Martin Luther King Day, as my friend Jenny Potter says, she calls that skim milk, skim M, capital M, lowercase I, capital L, capital K. She's like, we're just skimming on Dr. Martin Luther King's vision and the way of the kingdom of God and the way the story of the Bible ends in Revelation. But that's often what we do, right? And I think the same thing is true when it comes to lament. We don't have moments where we actually teach our people how to lament. And we often just kind of push that towards only a Good Friday service. That's the only time, or an Ash Wednesday service. If you do that, those are the times where we can just lament and grieve. And I think about that. If that's the only time we do that, then the other weekend services, all 52 of them, often are just moments of sheer joy and celebration. And I love it because every Sunday I know is to be a mini Easter. That's how people perceived it. But you can't have Resurrection Sunday if you don't talk about Good Friday and what took place on the cross. And so you got to be able to hold both. And I just started thinking about it is for most of us in the church, we've just skipped leg day. You know what I mean? It's like we just very, very strong in the joy and like move the room and up into the right hope. And yet chicken legs when it comes to grief. And so then when we do that, think about our people now who are having to walk through the death of a child, the death of a relationship, the end of a job, the loss, the sudden change. And we're like, almost like figure it out how to have good grief. And they haven't been taught or shown. And so this book, Grieve, Breathe, Receive, is hopefully a framework. Good Friday, Silent and Holy Saturday, and Resurrection Sunday to help people honor what comes up when change shows up, how they can be in grief well, and how they can walk through grief, but how they also can experience walking with grief in a lighter and more redemptive way. And so I walked through my story. I walked through, the unforgiveness that I had in my heart. I walked through just learning to make discipleship fun again, and the way that God surprises. Because really, in so many ways, you can talk about grieve, breathe, receive as the shock and the struggle and the surprise. There's something about the shock of Friday, the silent struggle of Saturday, and the surprise of Sunday. So if you haven't picked it up, it'd mean the world if you did. Hopefully you'll get to see just my heart on display, my love for the text. I love to help people walk in wholeness, my attempt to answer the question, what do you do when life does what it does? It has its way as a preaching sermon series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We created a small group curriculum. So even if you want to do a sermon series, you can definitely do a small group curriculum. A great church outside of Houston, Faith Bridge, really helped me with that. And that will be releasing very, very shortly. Also created devos around the evening psalms. And if you go to stevecarter.org/book, you can kind of put in where you picked up the book and the receipt and your email, and we'll send you the evening psalms. You also get on the list for the small group curriculum, as well as some exciting conversations that are coming that we will release to you around grief from some real experts on this topic. So from the bottom of my heart, thanks for your support of this podcast, the thousands and thousands of you who listen, who tune in, who share, who have rated, the people who have been so kind along this grief journey for me over the years, the ways that you've prayed, the ways that you've shown up and supported. Just all of that has meant the world. And I couldn't have gotten to this book without you and your support. So friends, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Preaching Today and Food for the Hungry. Thank you to the many, many churches, to Forest City, to my alma mater, to all of the friends. Just thanks be to God. And I hope that these words, to whatever grievances you're carrying, to whatever desert you're trying to bypass, I pray that these words will be an invitation to not bypass, but to experience God going to work on your heart and your mind, your body and your soul to prepare you for what he has in store for you. And I pray that you will discover a faith that's strong enough, even when it doesn't make sense, because you learn to grieve, breathe, receive. Thanks so much for tuning in. If I can ever serve you, never hesitate to reach out, steve@steveryancarter.com. Thanks again to Preaching Today, to Food for the Hungry, and pick up the book. Hopefully it blesses you. And if I could ever serve you or serve your church, please don't hesitate to reach out. Much love, everyone. Grace and peace.